Yeah. Look, it just keeps getting worse and worse for Anthony Weiner. He's got to go. Look, the House Minority Leader, Nancy Pelosi, former Speaker, said this guy has to go. Okay, she's his boss in the House.
Obama said it.
You have the head of the DNC, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and the President of the United States saying, if it were I would resign. I wonder if he felt the same way about Bill Clinton.
But if there's ever a time strategically for the right to just step back, let this scenario play itself out, you know, it's you know, getting better and better all on its own. We should not create any sort of roadblock for this. Just let it play itself out.
I kind of agree with you. You know what? If he wants to be, you know,
there's something new every day.
The poster child of the Democratic Party, and you know, and how the party. Well, there's very few that were. First of all, they were way too slow to ask him to resign. If it was a Republican, it would have been 30 seconds.
The Democrats with standards, Sean. I think you're asking too much of the Democrat Party.
All right, guys, we're going to have more on this. Good to see you. And Weiner's wife is back at home after her overseas trip with Hillary Clinton. Will she be the one to convince her husband, well, her disgraced husband, to finally resign? Michelle Malkin is here. We'll get her reaction, plus the always funny, the one and only Larry the Cable Guy. He's going to give us a sneak peek at his new movie. I wonder what he has to say about Weiner. Coming up. And the Anthony Weiner saga continues. Multiple lawmakers on Capitol Hill and even the president himself has suggested that the disgraced New York congressman should resign, but he remains defiant. And tonight, Weiner, who is on a temporary leave from Congress, well, he may have more to worry about. His wife is back in town now early this morning. Weiner's wife, Huma, returned from overseas and her trip with Hillary Rodham Clinton, and it was reported that Weiner was waiting for her to get home before making a decision about his political future, but that's not all. Today, Ginger Lee, a former porn star who claims that she exchanged emails and tweets with Weiner, held a press conference to talk about their relationship.
When I started interacting with Anthony Weiner, it was over politics, and once the electronic communication began, we did communicate on a fairly regular basis. However, I did not sext Anthony Weiner. I did not send photos to him or receive any from him. Any time that he would take our communications in a sexual direction, I did not reciprocate. I think that Anthony Weiner should resign because he lied to the public and to the press for more than a week.
And joining me now with reaction is the author of the New York Times #1 bestseller, Culture of Corruption. Michelle Malkin is back. Michelle, you know, just when you think it can't get any more bizarre, I mean, you know, Mark Levin's favorite song that he plays year-round, the Christmas tune, walking around in women's underwear, and then, you know, here's well, you're laughing, but here's the porn star rejecting his advances, and he keeps talking about his thing.
Yeah, well, package. Look, anytime Gloria Allred is glomming onto your coattails, it is way past time to get off the stage, let the curtains close, and move on. And he hasn't done that. And of course, it's harming the rest of the Democrat Party. Not that they haven't been in this position before, where they've had to tolerate ethical scandals like this and let it drag on and on and on because they don't act quickly, as most Republicans do in similar type cases. But what Ginger Lee didn't say in that clip, of course, is that it raises taxpayer resource issues. And this, of course, is why even the laggard House Ethics Committee is expressing some interest in looking into this, because, of course, it was Ginger Lee who came out publicly a week ago and said that Weiner or staff or somebody had helped coach her and tried to persuade her to lie.
They're saying it was Weiner, and Weiner was telling her to lie.
Right. And so this isn't just a personal matter between an adult movie star and a beleaguered congressman. The rest of the public has an interest in pursuing this as well. As far as his wife and what he might be waiting for, I think that has less to do with her consulting with him on his political career than it does with reckoning with all of these other disclosures that came out while she was out of the country trying to do work. And I mean, that's the sad thing here, is that his own indiscretions have prevented her from doing her own job effectively.
Yeah, well, look, I feel sorry for his wife, and I hope the press actually leaves her alone. I tend to doubt they will, but I hope they do. You know, you talk a lot about the double standard, and very specifically, Michelle, that there's a lot of other dirty laundry out there? Because we've done a lot of comparison about how Republicans handle scandals like this versus the Democrats, and you wrote an interesting column.
I did. I think it's time that we refocus on a lot of the dirty laundry that the House Ethics Committee and Democrat leaders have swept under the rug. The House Ethics Committee that is now in charge of looking into some of these Weiner issues has been dragging its feet for weeks, months, even years on other ethical scandals. For example, we've been waiting for a year for the trial involving Maxine Waters. The House Ethics Panel had brought at least 3 charges, violations, based on her monkeying around with TARP money and preferential treatment for a minority-owned bank called One United Bank.
By the way,
there have been Treasury Department officials who have weighed in on this and were alarmed at the ethical conflicts. Where is the trial? We've been waiting, and that's just one of many in the queue.
Did you see the Drudge Report today? You know, while all Americans are losing their jobs, people's biggest investment, their homes, they're losing value, people are underwater, and her net worth is going up 62%? How did that happen?
We're talking about Nancy, Nancy Pelosi. Well, yes, she's making out like a bandit there, and here she is, supposedly someone with way more compassion than the evil, greedy corporate Republicans. And I mean, look, this is the woman who said she was going to drain the swamp. And as I said, during her unleadership, of course, there's been a huge backlog in the House Ethics Committee. And you know, this is always the case that these cronies make out really well for themselves while the rest of us suffer.
Yeah, it's true. All right, how does this end? I don't see how he survives. I'm surprised he's made it this far. I would think that every Democrat now, you know, they want to scare old people, so they're out of the business of scaring old people, because every question they get is about should Weiner resign for showing his wiener and sending pictures of it. But, you know, so the question is, you know, does he survive this?
Well, I think he's going to try and lean on whatever contacts he has left, particularly in the New York Democrat Party, to make sure that he is able to make some sort of living, not only for his wife, but for his unborn child. I think that's what we're waiting for here. And in the meantime, you know, you've got Democrats who've got to show that there are consequences for this kind of reckless behavior, and that's why they're sitting on a decision about whether to strip him from his committee assignments if he's not going to budge.
All right, Michelle Malkin, always great to see you. Thanks for being with us. Appreciate your insight.
Thanks.
And let not your heart be troubled. Our great American panel coming up next. And tonight on our great American panel, he is a columnist with the Wall Street Journal. John Fund is back. She, an associate professor, and she has tenure of political science at Occidental College, and a writer for Ms. Blog. Caroline Heldman is here, and he's the author of The Bible of Unspeakable Truths. He's the host of Red Eye right here on the Fox News Channel, which just celebrated its 1,000th episode. How did that happen?
I have no idea. I was medicated throughout. I have no clue.
Well, you just said you didn't think you'd make 10 episodes.
Yeah, I was surprised I was hired, frankly. And we don't have tenure at Fox.
So was I.
Yeah.
All right. Anthony Weiner still hanging in there, walking around in women's underwear, telling ex-porn stars. I mean, I can't even believe this is a discussion at this point.
He illustrates the lie of public service, that he's not interested in serving the public, but for his own self-interest. He has no other talent. He has no other, job experience, except for maybe waxing. He's really good at waxing, if you've seen the pictures.
I have not.
Oh, well, I have some here later.
Oh,
but
thanks.
He should be a personal trainer. Get out of politics.
What Greg said is exactly the heart of why he's staying. He needs a job. He needs income.
Exactly.
Hank Scheinkoff, a Democratic consultant, said the problem the Democratic Party is they have to find somebody who can get him a job and income without leaving fingerprints. Because who wants to be in the newspapers as if I hired this guy? He has no talent.
Yeah, Bally's. Go to Bally's.
All right, you're our resident liberal.
Yes.
What do you think about this whole thing?
I think he should resign. I think that the Republicans should have put pressure on Vitter to resign, with his prostitutes and Ensign to resign when he was dating a staffer.
I agree.
Across the board.
If you have the impulse control issues, you don't belong, because they have access to national security secrets. So you thought Clinton should have resigned.
Exactly. Blackmail options. There are all sorts of poor decision making. I mean, the lying too. I think that's what. If he would have come out at the front, maybe he could have saved his political career, but the pathological lying is a problem.
Fox, there's a school in Massachusetts, and I guess this goes to the heart of you know, we're robbing kids. Now we got to explain, you know, my kids are listening to me on the radio or watching TV and hear me talk about wieners, wiener, you know, and they're laughing. They think it's funny. But, you know, there's a school in Massachusetts where literally they gave this test to kids, 12 years old, middle school, asking them, you know, have you ever had oral sex? You know, they want to know, for example, what birth control pill, what's your birth control method? Do you take the pill? Do you use a condom? All this stuff. And I'm thinking, and they do it without parental consent. Aren't we sort of like inundating our kids and robbing them of their innocence, you know, and by all of this at a younger age?
Well, you're asking the guy that hosts Red Eye. So I don't know if I have the right answer, but I have to say that in a way technology has sped this thing up, and you're dealing with an isolated. This guy is a narcissist. We have a narcissist culture. We have elevated self-love to a point where it's perfectly okay to stand in a gym and take pictures of yourself. It's all about you.
Thing in the world?
I stopped doing it years ago.
I bet you have. But the thing, who takes pictures of themselves like this?
Strangely silent.
Yeah.
Well, and Sean, I think what we're also seeing, you're talking about a survey of young people. I think it's important to talk about this with young people because
without parental consent?
Absolutely, Sean, because pornography has made its way into the lives of our children.
You're going to ask my son or daughter if, you know, if they've ever had oral sex when they're 12 years old.
Sean,
You think, wait a minute, you think you have the right to do that?
Of course, Sean.
No, you don't. Listen,
Sean,
no, you don't.
You
don't have the right to do that.
Pornographers are in our homes, which I am very much opposed to.
I control the TV in my home. There's no pornography in my home.
Sean, I think it's a fallacy, a myth that parents can control what their children are exposed to.
Excuse me, but who are you to tell my kids, ask my kids personal questions? I'm the parent. I'm in charge.
Sean,
you don't have a right to do that.
It's a public health issue. We need to keep track of what our children know, what they have.
What my kids are doing.
Sean, American children are exposed to pornography, which means they need to be exposed to knowledge about birth control.
You teach your kids your liberal way, and let me teach my kids that God exists, that they should pray to Him, and that the world was created by God. How's that?
Well, Sean, I don't want it to be this way, but the fact is, pornography has moved into our children's lives.
I love liberals ramming their values, John, down our throat. They think they can now take our kids, indoctrinate them, and circumvent our values.
The government doesn't have to be involved in these things. There's certain things that act as bulwarks. Churches, families, communities, we need to beef those up. And remember, this is a perfect argument for school choice. If kids want to go to a school where they're going to be asked all kinds of invasive questions, their parents can send them.
It's a public school.
I know exactly. That's why we need to have school choice, because there are a lot of parents who want to send their kids to schools where this kind of invasive intervention isn't taking place.
I don't find it to be invasive intervention. We need to know about STIs in order to prevent them. We need to know
you think they're going to tell you the truth? You think 12-year-old kids are going to tell you the truth?
No, they're more honest than adults.
What about the kids that don't even know what it is at 12?
Well, Sean, I don't think that that's the case. I think
you know what? You don't think, but you may be wrong. There are actually kids that actually have maintained some level of innocence in their lives. And they go to church, and then they pray to God, and they love their country, and they say the Pledge of Allegiance, and they haven't been indoctrinated by liberals like you.
Sean, very few children are unaware of pornography and sex who are 12 years old. It just doesn't happen like that anymore.
You know what? You have no right to ask any kid any personal question. If you want to ask a question, go through their parents first. Otherwise, we might as well hand our kids over to the state the minute they're born and let you indoctrinate them.
John, why are we so fearful of getting knowledge from our children about their sexual practices and behavior in order to
indoctrinate my children into your liberal views?
It's asking a question.
It's none of your business.
How is that indoctrination?
It's both. We'll take a break. Greta Van Susteren standing by for a sneak peek of what's coming up in 19 minutes, and I know Greta agrees with me.